You ever find yourself in a position where your 8-year-old impact wrench's battery is just dying and it can't take off the wheels of your car and you already raised it and you can't lower it back down, so you don't know what to do? Have I got the answer for you? Now you may be wondering, if the suspension was really so bad, how come I've waited this long to do it? Well, there's a very simple explanation for that. So, quick update. I realized that I did this slightly incorrectly, so we're gonna fix that. Oh, you want to know what the issue was? One side is in. There we go. Welcome back to another episode of Skelly's Garage. My name is Sam, and this is Faff, my 2001 BMW 540i with a V8 and a 6-speed manual and nearly 200,000 miles. Now, in previous episodes, we've done a lot of work to this car to make it more refined and more of a pleasant place to be while I'm driving it. And a lot of that work that we've done has kind of just avoided the big elephant in the room. And that elephant is the suspension. As I've mentioned countless times, this suspension is terrible. It's low, it's rough, it's not pleasant to be in, and it is by far my least favorite part about this car. But in this episode, we're finally going to fix that. Right here is our new suspension. We've got new shocks, we've got new springs, we've got new mounting hardware, all sorts of fun and exciting things. This is finally going to sort out the suspension, and it's going to allow me to drive it with perhaps even other people in it. I know, it's wild. Who won't then complain about how harsh and how terrible the ride is. Let's get started. Now, in a previous episode, I did talk about how difficult this car is to lift. And because the coilovers on this car are so low, I actually have to use these ramps to get the car in the air. We're gonna have to try to figure something out. But worst comes to worst, I'll go get some blocks of wood and we can drive onto that and then lift the car from there. Remember, this bumper sucks. We don't care. It hasn't done very much, but hopefully it's enough. Let's see. If I drive it up too far on the ramps, I won't be able to raise the car high enough with my jack, and therefore it will have been for naught. One additional thing that you should keep in mind if you're trying to do this at home, you really need to use wheel chocks. Even if your brake is set, even if you're in gear, this is just an extra layer of protection. And once you get in the habit of doing that, you won't ever accidentally make a mistake. It's just a good practice. Now, precisely there is the central front jacking point, so that's where we're going to lift. We don't have a lot of play to work with here. Okay, wheels are off the ground. Jack stands. I hear things like crinkling and clankling and... All right, we're on. Nice. Now, as I've said before, I'm not one to shy away from when I make mistakes. I own them. But I'm also extremely entertained by roasting myself when I have made mistakes. So, now that the car is safely in the air and on jack stands and we have avoided thousands of dollars of body damage, let's proceed. Got to take the wheels off. Oh, the battery's dying. You ever find yourself in a position where your 8-year-old impact wrench's battery is just dying and it can't take off the wheels of your car and you already raised it and you can't lower it back down, so you don't know what to do? Have I got the answer for you? This is what you can do instead, and it works a treat. Let me illustrate here with a better angle. You use the mass of the wheel itself as it rotates to work against the nut. Now, you can either use your hand tools or, since we're lazy, is that 5? It was 5. And there you go. You can now take the wheel off. So here we have it. This, along with 3 of its siblings, has been what's been causing me so much consternation over the last few months. First thing we need to do is we need to take off this tie rod end So it's an 18 millimeter nut. Nut comes off pretty easily. Then there is a spacer here. We will attempt to use one of these bad boys. You saw me use a similar one on this car before when we were doing the suspension arms. I'm gonna stand away because I'm very scared of this thing. This one is just made by Harbor Freight, but the principle of operation is exactly the same. Loosen the tool until it can slide over the nut and the rod of the ball joint you're trying to separate. Tighten it, and then go get a wrench and tighten it further. Do not tighten it until it snaps off because it will be very loud and scary. 19 works. Give it some tightening on, and then we wait. Still no dice. That's okay, we keep going. Holy f***. Me. Yay! These tie rods are trash. I should get new ones before I put anything else on. Okay, well, I'll order those. So the next step is to remove this pinch bolt that holds the strut together. It's a 16 millimeter bolt with a 18 millimeter nut, I think. And there's our bolt removed. And there's our nut. Both of these will be replaced. Now that the pinch bolt is gone, we're going to remove the suspension sway bar links here. There are many different types of sway bar links that BMW have used. Some of them have a hold on the other side that uses a 17 millimeter cone wrench, and some of them have this internal hex head. This one has the hex head, so a simple matter of attaching the wrench and using the hex head to hold it in place. Wow, that is on there very tightly. F*** off. These machines only understand one language: violence. Sway bar link is finally out. There we go. Here's how the sway bar link works. It's basically a tiny little ball joint. It connects the sway bar, which is just a long metal bar that runs across the width of the vehicle, to the suspension or some other hard mounts. Whoever put these on torqued them on way too tight. They're really not supposed to be on that much. That's why I had to get very violent in removing this nut. Anyway, now that that's sorted, let's continue on to the rest. Remember this guy? Really? What am I supposed to do there? Turns out we have to remove the cabin air filter. I'm going to remove these brake calipers. I don't want this line to get stressed when this comes down. Say hello to Mr. Bucks. Hot dog, those brakes are heavy. Saw Ed. Oh no. I forgot to remove the ride height sensor and I broke it. It's not going anywhere. Let's go build a shock. Welcome to Skelly's auxiliary outside garage. Remember that guy? Since I don't really have space in my garage to work while the E39's there as well, I decided that we're going to do it out here in the back of my X5. However, it is significantly colder out here than it is inside the garage. So I'm going to try to do this, and if I just get too cold, I'm going to go inside and we'll do this tomorrow because tomorrow's supposed to be significantly warmer. Anyway, our task that stands before us is to take this shock body and attach a whole host of things to it. We have the bottom spring perch here, of course. We have the bump stop, additional damper, pick your poison. We have the dust cover or gator, however you'd like to say that. And of course we have this spring, along with the top mount. Now, it's imperative that we take an aside here. I know what I'm doing. I know what to do here. I know how to use a spring compressor. However, there is no safe way to compress a spring. There are ways to compress a spring using tools that can minimize the risk, but there is no safe way to do it. The most common type of spring compressor, illustrated here, also has a different name, the Widowmaker. And I refuse to use those because I have seen them fail in a very spectacular and very fun way, and I don't want to die. We are going to use a different type of spring compressor. This one. This is what's called a plate-style McPherson strut compressor. What it is basically a pipe and a number of yokes that attach to it. These yokes compress the springs in such a way that it allows us to slip it on past the shock and the top mount and then be on our merry way. But it is still important to understand that this is not safe. So if you are ever doing suspension components and you don't know what you're doing, either take it to somebody who does or have somebody chaperone you and teach you. But, and I hate that I have to say this video is for entertainment purposes only. I'm not teaching you anything. Best way for us to use this spring compressor is, first of all, we need both yokes. Really? You want bigger ones? Yeah, you do. All right. When I've talked about spring compressor safety before, some people kind of roll their eyes at me. In the normal course of working on a car, nothing else just kills you or maims you in such an efficient way as springs have the potential to. When using the spring compressor, it's important to be out of the direct line of fire. Say, if one of these yokes fails, the spring will either go that way or that way. I'm not either that way or that way, so let's keep it that way. Well, let's see if that works, because otherwise I'm going to have to take it all back apart. No, it does not. I have to take it apart. This is the part of the video where I ask you if you know any good long stories, because this usually takes a little bit of time. Alright, final try, hopefully. Okay. This isn't supposed to be on the bottom of the shock, but as soon as it bounces, it'll wind up in the right place. Let's connect this in accordance with specifications. We have the dust boot connected. Suddenly I'm starting to speak in a German accent. You want to see this, right? Well, fine. We wedge the shock against something sturdy, make sure that the spring point on the bottom perch aligns correctly. Put on the plate. Then we install the nut. Now we have to get a special tool. Once you have the Allen key in place and the tool on top of it, you can take your socket and tighten it accordingly. You see, this would have been very helpful to have when I was doing the X5, but I did not have this set of sockets. I actually bought it immediately after that. Of course, I think this set of sockets is made of cheese, so I am not sure that I can recommend it. Now we can take our torque wrench and do the same process until our nut is properly torqued. Et voila, we have a strut. So, quick update. I did a little bit of a looking around and I realized that I did this slightly incorrectly, so we're going to fix that. Oh, you want to know what the issue was? Oh, okay, sure. So, you see how the spring has slipped into this kind of valley here? It's actually meant to sit atop here. Whether that will actually affect anything, I don't know, but the rules are the rules. Back into the loving device you go. Luckily, this is a quick fix. I'm glad that we caught it. 5 extra minutes now is worth a lot less than having to buy a new coil spring or a new shock body or any number of those things. There we go. That's correct. Now we release the tension. Doing the second front strut was a simple matter of rinse and repeat. With all my lessons learned, I was able to do it right on the first attempt, and compressing the spring, installing all of the goodies, and making sure they're secure was done in no time at all. However, when I was done putting the strut together, the temperature was finally starting to get to me. So, I decided to do the other two shocks tomorrow, when it would be much nicer. I'm gonna just do the other ones tomorrow when it's much nicer. It's much nicer. Let's do the thing. Yesterday we put together the front springs and struts. Today we're going to do the same thing for the rear ones. So let me show you these tools that I was working with. The idea is you can put the socket onto the nut and then use an Allen key to hold the internal rod or whatever it may be that needs to be held. I can't say that I'm super impressed with these. Like, one of these started bending, and I mean, I understand it's difficult to build a solid piece of metal like this that won't bend, but I mean, I wasn't applying that much force to it. Now, you may be wondering, if the suspension was really so bad, how come I've waited this long to do it? Well, there's a very simple explanation for that. This is the rear suspension for an E39 BMW. This is the shock body, this is the lower spring mount, this is the spring itself. Here we have a dust boot and the bump stop, but atop this bump stop is this cup. This part, called a supporting cup in BMW nomenclature, costs $6, but it has been backordered for many, many months. You cannot buy this part at any cost from anywhere at all. And believe me, I've tried. I've looked in the US, none. I've looked in Germany, none. I've looked in Eastern Europe, in Asia, in Africa, in South America, none. There are no new units of this cup, which is bizarre to me. But I guess it's not that big of a deal because it's not really a stressed part. So if you're replacing your rear suspension, you could just reuse this. But the problem was that I didn't have stock rear suspension. I had stupid coilovers, which don't have this part. So my solution was creative. I bought 2 used rear suspension struts, and we're going to replace a few of the parts. Now the shocks, they are almost new. They only have about 300 kilometers on them. But I am going to replace the springs and all of the other hardware and protective bits here to make sure that it's in as good shape as possible. Let's get started. Now that the strut is on the tool, we can begin the long and not at all tedious process of compressing the spring. You might be wondering, I've got an impact gun right there. Why don't I use that? Because you shouldn't. Every single manufacturer of these tools leaves absolutely no room for interpretation of the statement, do not use an impact wrench on these. I imagine it has something to do with vibrations and a bomb in here, and you don't want accidentally the spring to jump off and shoot someone. Even though it's longer, we'll do this the old-fashioned way. There's been a slight complication. The nut that's in this shock is not the nut that it's supposed to have. It's supposed to have an 18mm nut, to my recollection, and it has a 17mm nut. Not only that, it also doesn't have an internal hex here. In fact, it just has this ridge, which you're meant to hold with like a vice grip. I have neither a 17mm wrench nor a vice grip here in the Skelly's auxiliary outdoor garage maintenance and storage facility. It's some of those words. So I'm gonna go to the garage, I'm gonna get the tools, and I'll be back. That'll probably do. We're back, and I have some tools, so. That's off, that's off. So, since we are not reusing this spring, I'm going to just take all this apart, then we'll put all the new hardware onto the shock, and we'll put it back together. Easy enough. Can you believe that this stupid cup is the reason I had to wait so long to get rid of those stupid coilovers? Yeah. New bump stops. new dust boot, new spring purchase, and the other strut mount. And we have the lock nuts for the struts themselves as well. Now that the shock is free of all perished parts, the spring perch, on top of this, we're actually going to put the spring on directly. Put it into the loving device. It feels like summer, man. I don't like it. Attach the dust boot to the bump stop, insert it into the suspension. Then we take our extremely rare and valuable supporting cup. Once that is complete, we take our strut mount and we line that up, okay? Then we take this plate, put it over the top. There's absolutely no way that I can actually torque this, so there we go. Second verse, same as the first. Off we go. Our new spring, shiny. Yay! Great news, everyone. We've got new suspension. Now I just have to do everything else. Welcome back to the garage. Don't mind this. You'll find out what that's about later. Now that we've put together the new suspension, we need to install the new tie rods and do so in such a way that the car is still drivable afterwards. Removing this tie rod before, as you may remember, was a little bit of an exercise, and it didn't really want to leave the steering knuckle, and on top of that we found out that it was already on its way out anyway. So we're going to replace it. But I've thought of a way that we can replace it and get kind of sort of a similar alignment to where it was before, so that at least they can drive it to the alignment shop, and it is with this piece of tape. Now, the tie rods, here's the new one, they're attached to the steering box and they're threaded on. What I plan to do is take a piece of tape and attach it to where the threads are so that I know where the old one ended. Unscrew it, remove it, and then install the new one. Hopefully that'll work. So I'm just putting the piece of tape at the end of the tie rod, hoping that it maybe sticks. That should do it, as long as we don't mess with it too much. Now I need to remove this bolt. All right, so I didn't realize the camera wasn't rolling, so apologies for that. There are some flats here, which are 16 millimeters. So you attach a wrench to that and then turn the old tie rod off, and then put the new tie rod on after you've greased it up. So we've got the new tie rod on. I'm gonna just tighten this bolt down, and then we will put in the rest of the suspension and then torque everything up. Nothing too crazy. Now it's time to put in the long-awaited strut. Here we are with the strut. Now you'll notice that this has two marks here, L and R. Since this is the same part number, whether it's front left or front right, these two marks are what help you align the strut where the knuckle pinches the strut. That line should align with the marking on the strut. So since this is the passenger side or the right side of this car, when we put the shock in, we will be aligning the line from the knuckle to the R. Similarly, on the other side, we'll be aligning it to the L. This is the line I'm talking about. One side is in, second side is in, third side is in. There we go. Once you put the strut in, the alignment of those points is probably going to be off. So once you've secured it from the top, you can drop it down and then rotate the shock to be in the right place, which is what I just did. Pinch bolt going in, and our new nut. Tie rod spacer goes on. Want to see something fun? That is the ride height sensor. I didn't break this guy. I broke this guy. And that sucks because he's a lot more expensive. Oh well. Now, I want to replace the sway bar links, but I can't do that at the moment because the suspensions are a different height. Let's put the brake caliper back on. In case you're wondering, yes, that caliper is indeed missing the outboard brake pad. That's on purpose. Now it's time to do all the same things on the driver's side. Come on! This is ridiculous. I feel like this tool is gonna break. No, just a tie rod. It's been like 35 minutes that I've been trying to get this stupid tie rod out. It took me over an hour to remove this stupid thing. It was absolutely rusted on and just completely toast. What I've had to do is I've had to remove one of the brake pads so that the caliper could go on. My intention is to install the brakes this way, separate the caliper, put the brake pad back on, and we'll go on our merry way. That should probably do it. All right, brakes are done. Earlier this episode, I talked about the different ways that BMW has made sway bar links. I mentioned that some of them, like this one that I took off, have an internal Allen key that allows you to hold the rod in place while you tighten the nut onto the sway bar and the front strut. I also mentioned the existence of another type of sway bar link, this one from Unfaffed. Unlike the one that I took off the car, the rod is solid, and instead it has these points here, which are meant to attach a very thin 17mm wrench to hold it in place while you torque the nut. In many ways, this is actually a superior design. There's much less likelihood of the internal hex bit to be stripped out. Additionally, it is much more common to have a socket-style torque wrench, this is not a torque wrench, but you know what I mean, than it is to have a torque wrench with replaceable heads, one that could possibly accommodate, say, a box wrench. Therefore, I'll say that if you have the choice between one of these types of sway bar links and one of these, go for this. However, in the course of my many moves and many travels, I have unfortunately seemed to have lost my 17mm cone wrench. So I can't put these on, and since cone wrenches aren't really sold at AutoZone, I can't even make a fun montage of it. I'll have to order one from the internet. Anyway, this seems as good a place as I need to stop this episode because there's a lot of other work that I need to do and that I already have done but you haven't seen yet that I need to get out to you, my dear viewers. Do a quick sum up. We took out the old suspension, which I'm happy about. We even put in the new suspension, which I'm even more happy about. And I broke a few things. So I guess overall it's a success. So keep an eye out for the next part. We've got the rear suspension, we've got a couple of other miscellaneous things, and another big area that I have been meaning to address since I found that it was messed up. At any rate, whether this is your first episode of Skelly's Garage or you have been following me on my travails, thank you very much for watching. I genuinely very much appreciate that you're here. I'm thrilled that you are enjoying watching these videos because I am enjoying making them, even though sometimes it is not type 1 and more type 2 fun. And again, a special word of consideration for these two fellows who are supporting this channel on Patreon. Without them, the parts and the tools that I buy to make these videos would be a bit more painful for me than they are. So Again, thank you very much. And if you would like to join them, the link is in the description. At any rate, my name is Sam, this is Faff, this is Skelly's Garage, and we'll catch you on the next one.